to the Movie Club Emporium. And this week, man, I hope you guys are ready to get liminal because we are talking about the. I feel like this is almost becoming a weekly thing. The next YouTuber turned filmmaker. We're going to be talking about Kane uh, Parsons' Backrooms. Now, full disclosure on two major things. One, Um, I did not know a lot about the Backrooms going into watching the movie. Like I have seen enough. Um, I know what the Backrooms are. I don't know all the lore. Um, honestly, uh my knowledge of it is very like in passing. Like yeah, I've seen that image. I've seen these images. Um, honestly, the one that he made that I had seen was one called the oldest view. Um, but we'll get into liminal horror in a minute. Let's get into the movie first. Backrooms. This is the new A24 film, written and directed by Kane Parsons, the creator. Not necessarily of the Backrooms themselves. I believe it was just a photo on a Reddit post, but created what is now considered like the canon lore of the Backrooms. I started creating when he was like 15 years old because he's I don't think he's old enough to drink yet. He's given this big A24 movie with huge stars: Chidwell Ejiofor, Renata Reinshire, and Mark Duplass coming in. Um, I gotta tell you, for not having a lot of knowledge on the source material, um, I fully enjoyed this movie. So I have slowly been discovering like the internet, the horror of today, the internet horror. And ironically enough, not the Backrooms, but one that's another liminal horror, very Backrooms adjacent, if you will. The one that first got me was on TikTok, and it was called the Thompson Family Extension. Um, and just watching these little clips and being like, I gotta go to bed soon. I gotta stop watching this. Um, what's funny, and I know liminal horror has gotten very big. You can find lots of essays on liminal horror, so I'm not gonna do that. I will say my own personal experience with liminal horror. And I say this as far as in regards to the Backrooms itself as a movie. I feel like you're either going to really connect with what this movie is doing, or you're going to feel it very much a drag, um, and unsatisfyingly scary. And what I mean by that is we'll get into that. And this is spoiler free. I'm not going to go into any major details. But for me, my personal attachment to liminal horror is some of you may or may not know. Probably not many of you do. My grandfather was a minister. I know, right? Weird. Um, that explains the religious trauma. But no, he was a minister, and so I spent a lot of my childhood. You know, he would go to the church building every day. He studied and worked on his lessons. Prepped his sermons, all that. But as a kid, you're like, hey man, I'm gonna go play. You know, so you get your figures and you go to play. And here's the thing about churches, and yours may be different. Most of the ones I was in growing up were all kind of the same. Is there's a lot of dark hallways with a lot of closed doors when we're not when church isn't in session. Um, and so a place where you are taught from a very young age to feel very safe, um, can be very traumatic under the right circumstances and be very scary. You know, some of those buildings, your sanctuaries or whatnot, they're very big rooms. Some of them don't have windows. They don't have the stained glass windows, so they're encapsulated in a. You walk through the door and all of a sudden you're in a very large, dark room that when the lights are on and everybody's there, you're familiar with. Uh, when it's empty, it's very different. And then the idea of hearing footsteps, um, very creepy stuff. So like that's always so the idea of liminal horror like really like scratched that itch for me. And then of course discovering that, but not knowing anything about the Backrooms outside of there's this it's the Backrooms. Um, Going into the movie, this is a very intentionally slow paced film that is just overwrought with dread. And I say that in the best way possible. This is not a movie that's going to give you a ton of jump scares, or very depending on what you find disturbing images. And I'm so thankful that they didn't go that route. For after of course watching the movie, I kind of started going through YouTube just trying to find more information. And I watched a pretty lengthy video by the YouTuber Wendigoon about the Backrooms. So shout out to him for his due diligence on the subject. But I was impressed that they are. It is so much more about dread than it is scares. There are creatures, but they're not. The movie allows for what made the Backroom scary online to remain the driving force of this movie, because we've seen it done with other things, where you take a very unique kind of new concept, especially one coming from the internet, and when you decide to adapt it to film, we have to basically square peg, round hole it into a mold of, well, this is what the movie is supposed to be. The most egregious one. It's kind of the problem with Passengers last week is you have this old folk tale of don't stop on a slow road for somebody standing out in the middle on the road, and then you just kind of get like a kind of a subpar ghost movie. Something like the Slender Man film, where you have all this rich, interesting lore that's been built online. We finally decide to make the movie of it, and we just kind of make it a teenage girl, possession movie, haunting movie. This movie doesn't do it. This movie totally digs into what makes the back room scary, and that is the idea of being somewhere where it's just this disgusting everything about it tells you it's wrong. Whether it's the color of the walls and the carpet together with the fluorescent lights, the loud insect-like buzzing of the fluorescence, which is basically like part of the driving score of this movie, and it just starts to just get under your skin, just that buzzing, and just these quiet, never-ending corridors, and then from way down somewhere you hear something, and suddenly you're not alone. Um, and the movie does a fantastic job of that. Um, the acting in it is superb. Both our main actors, Chidwell Ejiofor and Renata, are both fantastic in it. There is a part of this movie that I really do love, and it takes place in 1990. Um, and there is a huge chunk of the movie, not a huge chunk, but a good chunk of the movie, where it becomes a found footage movie, because we're filming it. We're trying to document what we found, and it's 1990, so you get a big VHS camcorder. And that stuff is honestly probably where most of these scares, like the traditional scares, lie in the movie. Because you are essentially just watching like a found footage movie. And I know, you could see some people wanting more of that. There are moments, and the way that it's filmed, and again, kudos to this kid because he's like 19, 20 years old. I know a lot of people because of that have been like they're trying to give him the Toby Hooper poltergeist treatment. which is just like, some people got it, man. Especially when it's your thing and you're allowed to do your thing. There's a lot of great camera uh, moments that do call back to great directors. There's a couple of camera moments that kind of look very like Kubrick. There's a scene uh, toward the tail end of the movie that feels like full on Lynch, and I'm here for it. There's a lot of kind of little moments of humor, just a few sprinkled in to kind of give you a moment, because otherwise the movie is just full on dread, and you're dealing with, not only is it dread from what's going on in the back rooms, it's dread because these characters are dealing with some severe um, emotional and psychological frustrations, and it's kind of leads into maybe like what the Backrooms is and isn't. And again, I won't get into spoilers, but this isn't a movie that is going to give you a third act reveal. It's not going to give you, you do eventually see some of what is living in the back rooms, but you don't get like a full on monster fight. You don't get a big aliens esque battle, and then you get an ending that really kind of leaves you uh, very emotionally drained and very questionative of what exactly is going on. And to me, that is the best. And it's so funny as I was watching this and then thinking about the ones I've seen before. Um, thinking about stuff that I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I feel like this like this type of horror, this new generation internet horror, um, feels like this generation's Lovecraft, and I mean that in the as somebody who loves Lovecraft and will forever want to see adaptations of Lovecraft's work. Uh, but yeah, something like the Backrooms feels, and the ending of this movie feels very Lovecraft. Um, the analog horror stuff. Local 58 feels very Lovecraft. Doctor Nowhere, something like that, or even like some creepy pastas I've listened to, stuff like A Lonely Broadcast or Tales from the Gas Station. All of this, it's interesting to see the parts of that cosmic horror. We have these damn, creepy pastas, analog horror, liminal horror, but they are all forms of this Lovecraftian cosmic horror that it is interesting that all of these younger people are tapping into without having to dive into the Cthulhu mythos or the old ones or stuff like that. It's just like the technological version of that. And I find that very interesting. I really dug this movie. If you came up and you say I absolutely hated it, um, I'd be curious to know why you absolutely hated it. But for people who are just like, it was really long and just kind of went, there was no big scares. I see that, but I don't feel like that's something that was ever part of that. Now I've never played the game, so I don't know how the games work. But I feel like that's not really what has been kind of the driving force of this series of internet videos. And what's funny too is because this has been getting ready to come out, a lot of people have been talking about this new thing, liminal horror. Um, Brand new thing, there's all these little things. And I was sitting here and I was thinking, like, liminal horror, it's been around forever. Again, 80s and early 90s, I was terrified of liminal horror growing up, in my predicament. But then even looking at film, I was sitting here and I got, especially to see me over there walking around certain areas of the back room start to look more like little pieces of like past and like things from their past through their life. And it made me think of, it was one of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes, and actually it's the first Twilight Zone episode. So even in 1959, we were doing liminal horror, called "Where Is Everybody?" And it's about a guy who he arrives in this small little town, and there's nobody there. He's just him alone. Um, so I highly recommend Backrooms. Again, I can see it being divisive with some people, uh, but I'm here for it, and I'm here for this new wave of, I know we probably I'll probably get in trouble for referring to it as new Lovecraft horror, but it kind of is. When you break it down, it is very much like offshoots of Lovecraftian cosmic horror. So, um, if you think so, say so in the comments. If not, if you all guys want to discuss it, we sure can. That's what we're here for, is to talk about movies. Make sure we do so in the comics. Also, make sure comments, not comics. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with your friends. We are up another couple of members. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hopefully you joined us last night. Nick and I had an awesome time talking about the Mortal Kombat franchise. Uh, we do those lives every month, so you want to make sure you're here for that. And help us grow. We're trying to get to triple digits. And then maybe we'll do a special live. Who knows what will happen. But thank you guys for watching this video. Next week, I am probably going to be out of town. So unfortunately, I will not be seeing Masters of the Universe. However, I do plan on watching a movie that I hope does what I want it to, and that's to give me some dumb, fun shark movie. We're talking about Deep Water, not that Ben Affleck erotic thriller. No. We're talking Rennie Harlan is back making a fun, dumb shark movie. So we'll talk about that next week. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.